Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, also known as ETCG1 on this channel because I'm wearing my special hat and we talk about stuff in ETCG1. But before we get started, if it is your birthday, I want to wish you a very special happy birthday. Not just a regular, very special. Today I want to talk about the Fairmont. As some of you know, I posted a video about, YouTube and my future and all that kind of stuff, and I got a lot of response about the Fairmont, and some of it was fair, some of it was just, I don't like the Fairmont. Okay, cool, I get it. But then others of you just didn't see the point. Why work with this car? Why do something with this car? You didn't understand it. So I thought I'd take this opportunity in this video to educate you a little bit about where I'm coming from and why I chose the Ford Fairmont. Ford Fairmont is a Fox body vehicle, which is a body platform that Ford used from 1979 to 1993. And in that platform, they produced several different vehicles. Manufacturers often do this to save money. So they just tool up for one type of car or one body style and they just reskin the outside. Every car company does it so that, there may be a lot of similarities. They're not called the same thing, but they're different vehicles. And it just so happens that the Ford Fairmont, being a Fox body, shares the exact same platform as the Mustang from the same period. Also, some Thunderbirds, some Mercury Cougars, Mercury Zephyrs, Futuras. There are several vehicles that fall under the Fox body moniker. And as a result, all the parts, and here's the reason I chose the Fairmont. Because they're so closely related, they're cousins, they're kissing cousins, they're super close. All the parts that are available for the Ford Mustang for that period also work on the Ford Fairmont. Now you're thinking to yourself, Eric, why didn't you just build the Mustang? Because that car is cool. Everything that I'm doing to this Fairmont applies to a Mustang. So if you're building a Mustang, you can watch the Fairmont videos and get that information. And those of you, there are a huge majority of you out there that are already doing that. I'm speaking to those people that aren't in the know as far as the availability of those parts for a Fox body Mustang. They are plentiful and they are cheap. If you want punishment, build an old Dodge or Chrysler product. Their aftermarket has gotten better, but for many years, it was known that as far as rebuilding Chrysler products, you're going to pay a premium for the parts and they're going to be hard to find. I wanted to choose something to do performance upgrades to that was going to be cheap and easy to find parts for. I also did not want to do a Mustang. I don't have anything against Mustangs. Mustangs are cool, Mustangs have their place, but I'm not a Mustang guy. Strangely enough, I love driving around my Mustang before I pull the engine and everything out of it. I love the noise that it made. I love the Mad Max feel of it. Was a cool car. Loved that car, but it had some problems, as we all know. That's why I bought the Mustang in the first place, because I knew the parts that were on it that I needed, I could use in this car. In fact, that was the original intent of the whole project. All I wanted to do was take the V8 and the manual transmission out of the Mustang, transfer it over to this and the rear end, transfer all the guts, and make this into, well, a sleeper, which is what I want to get to next. So in other words, Fox body, I chose it because cheap, readily available parts for Mustangs. All Mustang parts fit on this. The only exception being is my Fairmont is 4 inches longer than the Mustang. That's where it gets a little dicey. So my frame connectors I had to modify a little bit. Some of my measurements had to be changed around a little bit, especially when I got to the rear of the vehicle. But otherwise, the front suspension, the K-member, all that stuff, the engine that I'm putting in, the transmission, all this stuff is designed to go in a Mustang. But if you look at the underpinnings and the undercarriage of this, or just look at these bodies and compare them side by side, it's really just a question of the outer skin that's really different. And the back half, because Mustang's a fastback or a hatchback and this has a trunk to it. Since both of these cars are apart, it's really easy to see just by looking at the firewall or bulkhead what the similarities are between these two vehicles. So this is the Fairmont and here's the Mustang. So they both came from the same pile of parts. It's just they built this into a Mustang and they built this into a Fairmont. Even look at this opening here in the back for this rear window. Now this has these louvers in here. Now look at this back window and just picture those louvers being in this area. So even the back window shape is similar. I would almost think that, on a perfect day or whatever, I could take the front end off the Mustang and put it onto this Fairmont. In fact, I think I've seen somebody who did that with a wagon on the internet. So they took a Fairmont wagon and they put the Mustang front fenders and front clip on it, and it looked like a Mustang wagon, right? Some of us are weird. All right, well, once again, why the Fairmont? Why not a Mustang? I wanted a sleeper. And a sleeper is a car that looks slow. That's the entire point. It looks dorky, it looks slow, it looks like it shouldn't go fast, like it shouldn't perform at all. It looks like plain Jane nothing, but it goes like stink. That's the idea. The idea is to surprise. Farm truck is a good example of this. I've seen farm truck in person more than once, and it is a cruddy old 1970, I think, C10 pickup truck that has like a 1,500 horsepower engine in it, nitrous powered V8 big block Chevy. That's awesome. And they take out Porsches, they take out Lamborghinis, they take out cars that should be way faster than that truck. They take them down. And the people with the really fancy cars and the race cars are even more butthurt about this because they got beat by some junky old farm truck. Same philosophy here. The idea is to make this car handle and perform and accelerate and drive like a Mustang would, a good Mustang, but to look like a nondescript old man car. That's the point. That's why I'm doing this. I'm making a sleeper. So a car that is fast, performs well, it doesn't look anything like it's supposed to run fast or drive well at all. Real quick, something else I just thought of on this. Insurance. Insurance is going to be way cheaper on this Fairmont than it would be if it was a Mustang. Why? Because a Mustang is considered a sports car. This is not considered a sports car. Also, anonymity. Well, at one time, I bet during the 80s, I certainly would have been incognito in this car, but now it's going to stick out because it's an older car. But the idea with a sleeper is to blend in so that, well, you don't attract the attention of law enforcement. Because if you're driving around in a hot Mustang or Camaro or a sports car and you're driving along, cops are going to look at that, because I'll tell you, this is probably two reasons. Number one, I know a few cops and a lot of them are car guys, so they're checking the car out to begin with. Number two, they know that somebody in a car like that might be up to no good, whereas something like this, they might not pay as much attention to. They might not. Point being is anonymity, cheaper insurance are also part of the sleeper build, and the reason why I chose this Fairmont. That's the point. So I'm going through all this effort, and it ended up being way more effort. As I mentioned earlier, I was just going to swap the engine, transmission, rear end over. Well, once I found out the engine was junk, and I was going to have to redo the block, and I said, turbo, that seems like an interesting prospect. I think my viewers would be more interested in me doing a turbo build than just dropping a V8 into a Fairmont. I'm kind of on the fence whether that was a good decision or not, because had I stuck with that original plan, well, first of all, I wouldn't have been able to use anything on the Mustang because it was all crap anyway. The only thing we were really able to save was that transmission, and that was only because Paul Cangialosi is a frickin' genius when it comes to T5 transmissions, or just manual transmissions in general. And you saw how bad that was on the inside, and I had to rethread practically every hole. We saw what kind of shape the block was in, complete junk. The rear end, they narrowed it because they were going to put wider tires in it. In fact, they put the coilovers right up through the floor. There's no real support for the rear suspension of that car at all. I wouldn't go on there. So I had to start with a new rear end from an outside source, got it from pull apart out of an 86 Mustang, and then brand new block, brand new transmission at this point, and all this other stuff. So it snowballed, because with that much power, that 575 horse is what the engine makes, 622 pound-feet of torque. I just want you to think about that for a second. In fact, I'm going to put a link in the description because I looked this up. And there is a 0 to 60, 0 to 100 mile per hour calculator that's there. By the time I'm done with the Fairmont, and some of you were concerned about the weight that I was adding with the rear suspension and everything, I think for what I'm doing, it's negligible, and I'd rather have this rear suspension than what I had in there previously. But 0 to 60, 0 to 100 calculator asks the weight of the vehicle and the horsepower output. And it gives you an estimated 0 to 60 time. Now that's barring that you're able to get the traction and everything to get you there. I estimate this thing, when I'm all done, to be about 3,400 pounds with me in it, is where I'm thinking it's at. The block is about 30 pounds heavier than a stock block. So there are some things that are heavier, but the K-member and the control arms up front are a lot lighter. So there's kind of a give and take that's going on up front. Anyway, 0 to 60 estimated for this somewhere in the 3-second range. And then 0 to 100 just a little bit more than that, like 3.1 seconds. So if I'm able to put traction to this car, the real numbers say that I'll be able to accelerate in the 3 seconds, the 0 to 60 in 3-second range. Now, if you look at the other vehicles that are out there that you can buy, you can purchase, the sports cars that do that kind of acceleration, they are up there in price. And granted, there's a lot that goes a lot faster than this, but my point is, this car, when all is said and done, could possibly be an M3 killer. It will run with a Corvette. It's got that kind of punch to it. Now, granted, I'm talking stock stuff. I'm not talking like modified stuff, somebody's tweaked or whatever, but it's respectable. So if I'm actually able to get this thing to hook up, and that was the reason why I went through and redid all that rear suspension. I wanted this thing to stay on the road. With that kind of power, there was the danger of even going at a good rate of speed, nailing the gas pedal, and that car being completely uncontrollable. The back end just spinning out, and the whole car just going out of control. I did not want that. I wanted to do everything possible to make this car as stable as possible, because you have to respect that kind of power. I mean, we throw around numbers like, oh, that car has 500 horsepower or whatever, all day long, because yeah, I mean, come on, things like Hellcats, and now the Dodge Demon with even more. The Hellcat was 707 horsepower, Dodge Demon, was it almost 1,000 horsepower? I can't remember. I don't remember what the Demon was, but even more powerful than the Hellcat, which was already insane. And I drove a Scat Pack. So I drove a 392 Hemi Scat Pack car, and that car was just fine the way it is. And that thing was only around, what was it, 500 and some horsepower? Only around 500 some odd horsepower. And we throw these numbers out like they're nothing. But you've got to be able to take that power and put it to the pavement, or else you do have nothing. You have something that's downright scary and uncontrollable. That's the issue. So that's why I'm trying to build this car even more so. That's why I'm going to this extent. I've completely redesigned every other system on the vehicle to match the kind of power that engine puts out. And Kevin Frischi did an amazing job. Kevin and his son Justin did an amazing job on that engine. So amazing. and all the people that contributed, comp cams and all, everything, my vision for that engine, I had from the beginning to make this car streetable. So all my power occurs in RPM ranges that you can use on the street. That's why Fairmont. And I hope I brought you in the know and maybe shared a little bit of my excitement with you on the direction I'm going. And yes, a lot of people have asked about a roll cage. I'm working on that right now. I'm getting some really cool tools to put that together. And yes, I'm welding it, but my welding has gotten better, so forgive me. Well, actually, don't forgive me. Check it out when the time comes. I've heard your feedback. I've been practicing. I've gotten better. Anyway. Roll cage is going in this thing. The fuel cell that you can probably see back there, it's a custom fuel cell, custom fuel system. It's going to be tight. And it won't just be a sleeper in the fact the way it performs. On the inside, I'm keeping the interior pretty much as stock looking as possible. I'm still on the fence of whether or not I'm going to replace the steering wheel, and I probably will. Mainly because that's like the main interface between you and the car and the road. And I want a nice steering wheel. So I think I'm going to bite the bullet, and yeah, you'll look in and you'll see a nice steering wheel. Well, maybe you won't, because I'm actually thinking about getting a removable one, just for ease of working on it. Because not only am I making this car for performance, I'm also trying to, since I have the opportunity to design it the way I want, make it as serviceable as possible. So when I go to work on this car, it's all laid out easy. And besides that, I've covered like every nut and bolt on this thing. I mean, I have this thing stripped down to basic nothing. I've learned a lot, and I've talked about this in other videos. But the point is, Fairmont is a sleeper. And it's not the first sleeper I'll make, because, well, I've got some ideas. I got some really good ideas. And I hope you hang with me while I make this transition, because I really feel this transition is pretty much inevitable. I'm not saying I'm not going to do repair videos anymore, because I will do repair videos. There will be things coming through here that I will fix, but I get excited. If you haven't been able to tell from this video, I am excited about this car. I'm excited about what it can do. I'm excited about what opportunities it'll bring me in the future. And I hope you will be too. But anyway, I've talked at length. It's time to close this out. I want to thank you for putting up with this, meaning that I think I've gone on a bit long, but thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all of you supporting the Fairmont project, and those of you that aren't necessarily in the know. I hope I've brought you up to speed and educated you a little bit as far as what the reasoning is behind choosing this car. Cheap parts and making it a sleeper. cheap, readily available parts. And that's comparatively speaking. Cheap is relative. Automotive questions, I ask that you head over to ericthecarguy.com. That'll be linked somewhere down in the description. Outside of that, be safe, have fun, stay dirty. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.